3. Machen Sie sich bitte frei, der Arzt ist gleich für Sie da.
So hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Whining On. My name is Matthew Bowden, the Incorrigible Rogue, and today we have Krissie Illing. Hey Krissie, how you doing?
Hello, Matt. Hello, everybody. I'm very well.
Cool.
I hope you all are too. Yeah.
So one last thing before we begin, everybody. If you have just joined, please like. If you comment, I will attempt to ask Krissie the questions that you ask. If you've just joined us, please subscribe and follow in all the applicable places. Click a bell where bells need to be clicked. So Krissie, you performed for most of your life. Yeah,
Yes.
I'm correct in thinking that. Were you part of a theatrical family? Was that something which set you on that path?
No, I wasn't. Although my mum always would have liked to have been, but she ended up being a nurse, and my father was a photographer, so it was quite arty like that. But he had to give it up because suddenly he had 4 kids, and he wasn't making enough money with just taking photos at weddings. So he had to stop that. And I don't know. I knew I was theatrical when I was the age of 3. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a ballerina, a prima dancer, prima ballerina. And it's really funny because I thought that everybody knew what they wanted to do because I did. And it was much later on in life that I realized that not everyone knows what they want to do. So I was very lucky like that.
And why did you want to be a prima ballerina? What made this, do you think? Was it just, were you born with that idea in your head, or?
Yeah, I was born with that notion of dance. I needed to dance, and I remember my garden was really important to me because there was my studio, and I would go and dance, and I'd start doing ballet lessons when I was 3 years old, and in between using the garden as a studio, I'd have to play cricket with my 3 brothers. But this I can remember my first dance classes at 3 years old in the little church hall at the Edinburgh Road. That was so sweet. And there was this teacher, and she was called Bessie Thrush. And Bessie Thrush had a pianist, a piano player, to play the music for us. And she was called Mrs. Blake. And for me, they seemed to be like 100 years old, but they're probably younger than I am now. But anyway, there we were, about 7, 8 of us. I remember going around, first position, second position, third position, fourth and fifth, and then half the class would be Bessie and Mrs. Blake talking about their cats, and that's maybe why I love cats so much as well. I've always had cats. They're easy as well, easier than dogs.
So going to dancing lessons at 3 isn't something. Sorry, going to dance lessons at 3 isn't something that everybody does, right? It's not. No. It's not a normal thing. So
no, my brothers didn't do it.
Yeah, but so your family, did they go to the theatre all the time? Did they absorb that kind of media? I'm trying to think of what got the idea in your head to do them.
They liked having parties. So maybe I was a very sociable kid, and I liked being looked at. Or I remember with Bessie Thrush, this school, and it was Russian method. So we used to put on a show in the church hall once a year. And I always remember my family sitting sort of in the front row, and our grandma and grandparents and uncles and aunts, and they would laugh at me. maybe late. I didn't like it at the time, but maybe later on I realized I had funny bones. So that laughter must have subconsciously gone into me as being something that was there, that I quite
positive.
liked. It was positive, even though at that age I wanted to be a ballerina, and ballerinas were serious. And the next terrible thing was at 7 years old, I had to start wearing glasses, and ballerinas don't wear glasses, and that was awful. In fact, I went to the end of the garden and smashed them up with a hammer. I have a memory. I don't know if I actually did that or I just really wanted to. And I've got nobody to ask unless my big brother remembers.
And how many hours a week were you doing in ballet practice at this time when you're 7?
Oh, only one class a week with the teacher, Bessie Thrush. And
So
then
your
I'd be
mother,
in
your mother
studio
wasn't a pushy.
garden.
Your mother
Huh?
wasn't a pushy stage mother. Then she wasn't
No,
pushing
no,
you out and going,
I
"Go do the tap."
no, not at all, not at all. And but that's all I was interested in throughout my whole school years. So I was only interested in dance.
And so
Yeah.
you weren't. Were you in the theatre classes? Were you doing drama?
No, I didn't. Not at that age. That came. Well, actually, I never went to theatre school. Later on, when Bessie Thrush finally retired, I changed from this Russian method to RAD, Royal Academy dance. And I was pleading with my parents to send me to the ballet school full time. But I think it was that they didn't really know how to go about it. So I was doing like maybe 3 classes a week with this new school. And we'd go into London to do our exams at the Royal Ballet School. And yeah, that all happened. And then
And you're
then
still thinking, "I want to be a ballerina." This is the only thing in your head
absolutely.
at this moment.
Yeah. Well, no, not at 19. It was more kind of sex and drugs and rock and roll sort of took me other places. Like I started working at the dance centre, not the Pineapple Studios that are now, but the original Floral Street in Covent Garden Dance Centre, so that I could get some cheaper lessons every day. And I'd sell their ballet shoes and leotards over the counter and work in their little cafe. And that's where I met Patty Webb. So Patty Webb, if you're watching this, I would love to talk to you. Anyway, me and Patty, we were in the dance centre, and this is 1980, 1981. I got some notes here. No, 1975. Yeah. Oh, but no, I got written down here because I had to go through some old diaries to try and remember everything.
Well,
It's a lot.
I appreciate the fastidiousness to make sure dates are
No,
correct.
it was totally fascinating for me to have these memories relive.
So who is
no,
Patty
it's
Webb to
busking
you
in
then?
Covent Garden. Who is she to me?
Yeah.
We were called this and that, Chris and Pat. And we met in the dance centre, and we were doing jazz dancing, and we met a teacher, Barry Gratham. He was doing Camille Delarte. So we were doing these lessons and classical classes together. And then we thought we'd get a little act together. And that's when we took it onto Covent Garden, and we'd busk in shit, where the river is, Camden Town.
Camden Town.
Yeah.
Before we go on to where and what happened, why did you guys decide to do that? Why did you want to do a little skit together? What was the thinking behind it? What was the inertia to make you do it?
Probably while showing off, just wanting a stage.
So you weren't thinking there's a career for me doing street performance. I'll go and try and do that. I'll try and be a career street performer. This wasn't a piece of consideration.
It was just kind of the beginning of having public watch.
But you've been doing ballet and dance all your life. You must have had public watching before.
Yeah, well, I never was on stage with my ballet. It was all lessons and exams. And after Bessie Thrush, the Royal Academy, we didn't do any shows in that school. Weird.
That surprises me. I would have thought you'd be doing practical dance on a stage quite regularly.
Yeah, no, we didn't. No.
Okay, so you guys, you kind of
in here. That's another story.
So you guys, you want to perform. You want to get a taste of being on a stage, and the street is a very accessible avenue for you at this time, right?
Yeah. It was easy. We just went out there and did it.
Yeah.
And
And did you sit and plan before you went out there? Did you write down an entire show? Were you quite thorough between the two of you of what was going to happen, how you do it?
oh yes, yeah, we rehearsed a lot, and we had lots of different little sketches, this and that. And
was it what you imagined when you took it on the street after rehearsing it?
well, it's not the same as being in the studio when you're on the street. So it's a bit of the adrenaline comes and the excitement, and we're going to get a crowd, and we got do our best and prove that we're good enough for people to stop and watch and put money in the hat and bookers.
And what did you devise to do?
What do we kind of mixed mime and dance together, and then later on we brought in a fire act, because we were invited into some clubs. We ended up doing the whole London cabaret circuit, the Embassy Club and Heaven, and I can't remember anymore, but there were Steve Strange's club. So of course,
how'd you go from just doing a show on the street to doing all these clubs then?
I got people invited us in. We got put on the front page of the what was it, the radio, famous, not radio, God. Oh dear, I knew I'd forget words. And this was a paper for musicians. It will come to me. Yes. That's the one. I got it somewhere. It's a picture of this and that, along with Bob Dylan on the front. And we'd just been working in some club. We didn't have an agent or anything. We were just like talked to or phoned up. I can't remember now.
And were you being like silly mime, clownish kind of thing, or was it quite serious?
I think we were quite serious then. We used to do a little Pierrot number, lovely Pierrot sort of stuck in a box behind the wall, breaking it down. We always used music. Another one just came to mind, Jar Wobble. Remember Jar? No, you wouldn't remember Jar Wobble. And we would do a bit more sort of mask work, and then in the end, half mask and stuff, and have fire and eat the fire.
And did you have, because it sounds like your stuff's very different to what people might have been doing in Covent Garden at that time. Did you have help from the other Covent Garden people in developing it, or did they leave you to your own devices?
I think they left us to our own devices. I mean, I remember learning a lot from Randolph the Remarkable. He was an actor, and he would come to Camden Lock. That's right. And he was quite a big, chubby guy. And it was the show of like, it's really showing it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And he'd have this kind of plastic bowl with a little bit of water in it. And he would just say, and now I will put my very round stomach into this bowl of water. And he'd sort of bend over this bowl and then stand up. And of course, the suction, it's still there. And it was just hilarious, but it's the way he did it.
They bought into him and they went on the journey with him, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And were you guys did you guys have much knowledge about being a clown, as this guy possibly we could say was, kind of being a fool on the street? Are you taking yourselves very seriously at this time?
Yeah, we were. We weren't. I mean, I didn't really have any clowning knowledge except being me, which I don't know really.
So how did you guys?
I used to. Yeah.
Sorry, you carry on.
Hello, Andre, Vincent. Go on. It's clicked up.
So you guys are working the clubs and you're doing bits on the street and going around. Is your show changing to do with the other stuff you're seeing on the street and how people are working their street shows and how they're working the crowd dynamics?
Yeah, I think we were so new to it then. learned as I went along about how to get a crowd and try and keep a crowd and bottle a crowd and all that stuff that comes with it, and just being very tight and open, keep the people there. But with Patty, I mean, I think, and also with Covent Garden at that time, people would come just to watch the shows. So I think it might have been an easier time than maybe it is now. You know, we used to, scouts would come and watch I'm talking, later on in the 80s. But no, even that soon.
And what was Covent Garden like for you at that time?
I loved it. It was just full of amazing people, performers and sunshine, and even working in the snow was beautiful, and the rain. You know, you just did it. Yeah.
Why did you say it was so beautiful? What were some of the qualities that you enjoyed of it?
I just have lovely memories from those days, sort of feeling a bit of freedom, that my work, I could choose when I wanted to do it, as long as you got to the list in time when alternative arts took over and you got your name up on the list. And
so you say when alternative arts took over? I was under the assumption that alternative arts took over in 1980, and that's when the pitch more or less started to be worked.
Maybe you're right. I tell you now, my dates will all be mixed up in my head.
But you say you remember the changeover from it being not managed to being managed by alternative arts.
Maybe that memory is, yes, I do. I was there when I remember we were all going, oh God, how's that's going to happen? How's it going to work? And will it work? And
so was the meeting? Did people have meetings between all the performers? Like what happened?
God, sorry, I really can't remember what happened. I got bigger memory of them opening up their inner sort of stage area under the cover.
When was that opened up?
I don't know.
the indoor pitch.
the indoor outdoor pitch under the roof, under the glass roof. I don't know. Someone would have to help me there. But it must have been, I don't know, earlier 80s.
And did it change the way you guys worked when alternative arts came in then?
Yeah, it was more controlled. It was more, well, you had to write up your name on the list and what time you wanted to pitch up your show. So the earlier you got there, the better you would have the chance of having the time you wanted.
Was that up till like 12 o'clock in the evening? I heard it was very, very late, literally the turnover of the clock.
Yeah, it was late, although we do more evening or afternoon.
And so how long were you guys together working as a double act?
Me and Patty?
Yeah.
Me and Patty were together probably only about a year, because what happened was we grew into 4 people. There was another guy called Mark who did fire, and he was a dancer, a really good dancer. And I think Patty and him, they kind of hit it off very, very well. Anyway, the second guy that came into our group, I didn't hit it off very well with at all. So we did this big fire show all together. I can remember in Heaven, the club under the arches. And Mark, he had this fire wheel, and we'd have wonderful costumes, and it was very weird, and blood capsules and everything. And then anyway, they decided to become a duo. And that's when I went to Paris to study with De Croo.
Why did you decide to go to Paris to study with De Croo then?
Because I met this guy, I think his name was William, and he used to be an assistant of Etienne De Croo. And being a dancer, I watched this technique and I fell in love with it. And for me, it was kind of a bit like body popping sort of. It's not body popping. I know what body popping is because my daughter's a specialist. Blah blah. But I just had to go and study with him, and I couldn't afford to go to Gaulier, so I was with Etienne de Creux. Now that was in 80. Oh God.
So you're saying that you liked de Creux because he had, and I know very little about this. I'm only knowing what people have told me in interviews, that de Creux had a very mechanical nature of understanding the way the body moved and instructing through that, and that's the thing you enjoyed about it.
Yeah. I loved as a dancer. It was so different to the jazz and the flow and everything. It was all very mechanical. He'd say it's mime from here down. He didn't work with the face at all, and it was all about triple designs, which is England. A turn left or right, which you can do with your chest as well, and then an inclination, and then taking it forward or back. So, and he would articulate each joint as to telling a story.
You're smiling talking about it, so I take it it's something you took a lot of pleasure in when you went there.
Yeah. He didn't like me very much, though.
Why?
I don't know. I probably smile too much. I got told off in a hip hop class for smiling once as well. I just love dancing and I can't help it. I have to smile, and I got told off.
So what was your first day like there? So you've moved from London. Is it the first time you've been abroad? Is it the first time you went and lived in a different country?
It's the first time I lived in another country. I think I'd made it to Holland for a little holiday before with a friend.
Did you speak French?
No, and I missed out a lot of de Creux's sort of talks. There was, I think, someone translating, but I really wish I could speak French. I would have got a lot more out of it. But
did you get a lot out of it, and despite not having the language?
Yeah, I did.
So when you left,
yeah.
So when you left and you went to go and perform again, what was the difference between you walking in and walking out?
Well, I think it was confidence as well, because whilst I was there that year, it was 83, I was having to bus by myself. And of course, I was doing all the routines that I used to do with Patty, and working on very, very slowly and gradually on new ones with myself. And it was another great time because it was the 80s and all these amazing buskers were in Paris. I met René Bassinet. There was a guy called Pony, Ika Nord, Peter Snow, Carmelo. Loads. It was wonderful. Yeah, David China, Ika Nord. Yeah, it was a good time as well. So I pushed myself. I had to earn some money, and I didn't have very much to earn, or nothing at all. So I went out and I busked by myself. So I got more and more confident. And
was the Paris busking scene kind to you? Did it open up its arms to you and welcome you, or?
Yeah, I remember some problems. We'd have some problems with music suddenly happen that we weren't allowed to use music. Of course, I was really music background. That's how I worked, and but mainly. And then where were we? Someplace. Suddenly, we just get stamped out by these flamenco dancers, making a hell of a noise and completely drowned me out. So that was it. I knew I had to wait.
And was there a lot of that with the acts where people would work over the top of each other, or were you kind of organised between each other? What was the general scene?
The general scene was like getting ready and seeing if someone's just finishing and just trying to take it and take that moment and that space and do your thing. But I can remember quite a lot of things going on at the same time at that time.
And how are you evolving at this time then? Because you've taken what is primarily pieces of dance and you're studying physical movement as a way of kind of creating an effect that's not necessarily dance? How do those two things come together?
Well, I guess with the crew, it was more dance I did then, and I didn't have a voice at all.
By voice, you mean character? You didn't have a sense of the character you were playing, or?
No, I didn't use my voice. It was all very visual, or totally visual. Voice came later when I started busking with Mark Britness, Nickelodian, in 80, when I came back from Paris, in fact.
At this time when you're in Paris, are you not speaking because you're nervous to speak? Is it just because you didn't want to? What's the reasoning for not using this tool?
I guess being a dancer, I hadn't thought of my voice so much as an element of performing. Even people screaming for their public, and I would do following people, but silently, but I'd have music. And but it's great to have the voice as well. And
did you identify yourself as being silent at that time, as being a silent performer? Because I feel like there is a character for people who don't talk when they do shows. They kind of go, no, I'm a silent performer.
I did have a white face. I did have white face mask on.
And was the part of that then? Was that whole identity tied up into the idea that you're not going, "Oi, come here, watch this, come on"?
Yeah, I think I was the gentle kind of little hero, you know, of dancing. And yeah, because there was Italian magician, and sometimes I'd work with him, and he'd make me disappear and come out from under a cloth and be a little puppet and stuff like that. I guess I didn't really have so much to say either. No.
Fair enough. And so when you leave there and you come back to London, what are you thinking about your life at this point?
Well, I went back to the dance centre, which is now the Pineapple, because the dance.
And so did you go back there to teach dance again? Is that the thing you were thinking was going to be a component in your life, or did you think you were going to go and work in Covent Garden and do street performance?
No, I definitely wanted to carry on performing. And I met, I had a friend who introduced me to a new boyfriend. It was Mark Britton. And he had been studying in England with a guy called Desmond Jones, who is who studied with Etienne Decroux and was teaching his technique. So we both had this in common. And we started working together, but how did it happen? We had, I think someone was looking for some actors. Now, Mark was an actor. He had a voice. I was the dancer. He gave me the voice and I made him dance. But before we became a duo, we worked in a theatre troupe, but not for very long. It was some Chaucer tales, and I'd made all these masks. That was what I was doing as well in Paris. I made masks that I would. So I was doing a lot of mask work. I've forgotten about that. A little bit of mask dancing on the street, but I was selling them to a shop, get a little bit of money. Anyway, in England.
Was this paper mache masks?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. I haven't got any lying around. No, I made them with I'm forgetting words now. It's like a muslin, fabric, and I'd make the mold with clay that went hard. What's that called? You know what I mean, don't you?
Clay. As far as I know, it's called clay.
Well, first of all, I take a mold of a face, fill that up with the shit. What's it called? It's
plaster.
Yeah, plaster. Thank you.
Yeah.
Plaster.
Okay.
So then I'd have a face, just like a dead pad face, and I'd build up features or use the face, and then I would I used muslin with a mixture of glue. This is my secret remedy. A mixture of rubber, glue, and polyfiller. That was it. I haven't done this for years. And I'd very carefully paint it with a paintbrush, the cloth over the face, and then pull it off and cut it and paint it. Anyway, so I made masks for this production that we did, and that's how I met Mark. But after, my brain's going like this with other stories. So I met Mark and two other people from this troupe, and we decided we were going to do a show called the Channel 5 TV dinner show, because at that time we only had 4 channels on television. Can you believe that? And so Mark wrote it, and there are all these different characters in it. And then before the premiere, the two eloped together, leaving just Mark and myself to do the whole show. And we did the whole show, just the two of us, with various different character masks that I'd made as well.
And were you guys quite happy about that, or was it panic stations?
Well, it was panic stations for a little while. Then we realised we were much better off without them. Andre keeps putting stuff up.
She lived and worked in mainland Europe for too long. She's forgotten English words.
It's true. I've also got a bit old. Anyway, where was I?
Yeah. So, how did the show go? Did the show work?
Oh, we got great reviews. We were above a little pub, somewhere in London. And then I said, look, Mark, dear Mark, let's reintroduce you to busking. It's so much fun. It's so much better than this. So there we go. That's how we ended up on the street.
And so that was just a thing of going, sod the pubs. We can go and work for big crowds in Covent Garden.
Yeah, absolutely.
And did you take the same show and just kind of contort it into a street show? No.
No. We devised characters. My clown is called Wilma. Oh, you just saw her on that YouTube video. That's older Wilma. Young. I'm wearing the same wig, but I've changed the hairstyle 3 times. Anyway, so I was Wilma and Mark William, and we stayed as William and Wilma until 2014. That's when we did our last show together. So there we were.
That's a long life for a double act.
Yeah, 30 years together. Yeah. And still friends.
Well, hopefully we'll get to why you didn't work together in the end, and what went on and what you did after.
Yes.
When you went out on the street for the first time together, did you prepare the work the same as you'd done before? You went to a studio, you'd sat and worked out what you were going to do?
Yeah.
And
yes, we went. Well, we became a lot more spontaneous, but Mark loved rehearsing. Sorry, Andre will know why I'm laughing. We worked really, really hard. We really worked hard, and we just had sketches. William and Wilma, in fact, only did a ballroom dance at the very end, and then this little love story with Lionel Richie. Hello, is it me you're looking for? The old tricks, slow motion and the boing, falling over. And that was the end. So before that, we'd do a mask dance. What else did we do? Shit. Various different little.
Do you remember what it was like going back there with the? So had you been doing single person shows there in between, or had you stopped working there and then developed this double act and then went there with the double act?
Sorry, I lost you.
So the reason I asked is I was trying to figure out if when you went to Covent Garden with this double act that you'd worked out, whether or not the people on the pitch had been seeing you all the time, whether you'd been there working all the time. And so it was just you bringing a double act to the pitch, or whether you'd not been working for a while and you'd just gone back.
From Paris back.
No, when you were forming, because I believe now we're talking about the forming of Nickelodian, right?
Yeah. Sorry.
So
yeah.
Just before that, were you working on the street before the stage show, and you said, "Listen, Mark, let's go and do the street"?
Yeah, I don't think the Channel 5 TV dinner show went on for very long. I don't know how many times we did it, but it was short lived.
What was it like when you took the show to the pitch for the first time? Did it work? Were people, other performers there, impressed by it, or was it kind of, it needed wearing in?
Oh, it probably needed wearing in, like anything. I'm trying to remember. I mean, we probably got some rude comments from some people as well. But
why would you have rude comments? Was that from performers or the audience, or
performers?
What do people mean in Covent Garden?
We ended up as great friends. It's okay. I think we were it was the new act, so people opening up. I don't remember any real remorse at all. No. All these wonderful people that you have actually interviewed already. I know so many of them. I just remember that time as being fantastic, and then more and more, because we were doing it every day. Well, for me, I kind of released myself as wanting to do more clowning, and I love studying characters, just sitting in a cafe watching people. I've always done that, and improvisation would come within the acts, especially William and Wilma, because they were nerdy characters. Like Mark would grab someone's ice cream cone and just put it in my face and start licking the ice cream off my face. All crazy stuff like that, but spontaneous improvising.
And did you start developing that between each other, that you became intuitive of what the other person was going to do, or were you'd understand?
Yeah, because we were so many hours every day together working.
How many years did you work that show in Covent Garden?
Oof. Oh, let me think. Because scouts would come from all around the world looking at the artists in Covent Garden and invite them back to their festivals. So I'm just looking here. In 1985? No. Yes. No. Yes. 1985, we were invited to go to Hong Kong. So me and Mark had probably already done 3 years together in Covent Garden.
Was that before or after the Channel 4 thing?
The Hong Kong.
Yeah, is Hong Kong before or after the Channel 4 thing?
Yeah. Forget Channel 5. That was just introduction.
No, the awards, the Time Out Awards.
Yeah. I think we had just done it. Yeah, it must have been, because we were invited to. Yeah, we had just done it.
So what was the Time Out Awards?
The Time Out Awards, 85, 84. I just said 85. I don't know. What was that? That was Bob Wilson of Time Out and the Village Voice of New York coming together. And maybe it was 3 years they'd done this in Covent Garden.
What was it?
What was it? They built a huge stage and they had a jury, and it was horrible. Really shouldn't have done it. But my partner won. Sorry. No, we did it. We won it that year, and it was the prize was to go to New York.
Why would they have a jury?
Because they were judging it.
They were judging the street shows.
Yeah.
And so they had what were the people on the jury then? Were they performing artists, critics? Were they knowledgeable people?
No, they weren't knowledgeable people. I don't even know who they were now, except Julie Waters wrote a terrible thing about Nickelodeon. And Joe Lustig, that was it. Wasn't he the filmmaker? He filmed it. This guy, Joe Lustig, who used to do the Mime Festival. And that year, Waters said, "Oh, Nickelodeon shouldn't have won it because you can see anything like that in the West End," which was not really true at all.
And they were inferring by that because you do a lot of singing and dancing in your show, and they played it down. Well, not singing, but there's a lot of dancing in the show. A lot of physical movement.
I guess so. I mean, maybe I should take it as a compliment now. I did find the letter again from my old diarist that alternative arts were complaining to her about her. Anyway, we got to New York. A lot of buskers were boycotting it as well. I remember.
What was the event like? Was it a good event? Was it a fun event to be at?
Yeah, it was packed. The garden was completely packed solid. Way back to the pub with people in the balcony. You couldn't move, and they built a big stage. And I think we were changing in the garden behind St. Paul's, and I thought it was a nice atmosphere. But I always live in my own little bubble.
Fair enough. And when you went to New Zealand, when you went to New York, did you perform there? New Zealand, New York, interchangeable.
It's another funny story because when we went to New York for the price of New York to perform at the Square, the Big Apple, Times Square. So Mr. Adams and Mr. Dandridge came with us, the Jugglers. The Vicious Boys came with us. Andy Smart and Andre on foot someone. Can't remember his name. John Lenihan, the magician, came with us, and Tony and Stodd. Tony and Stodd were this amazing music duo of violin and guitar. So we were all on the aeroplane going off to New York, and when we arrived, I think I remember coming off the aeroplane and the heat just like wrapped you in this hot blanket. It was so hot, and we were jet lagged. And I think we had to do a gig that night in the Bottom Line, it might have been called. Bottom Line.
Was this like an outdoor festival gig, or have they put you indoors for this?
It was a club. We did clubs as well. There was one club called the Cat Club, and it was quite crowded. And Mark and I just finished doing something on stage, and everyone went, and we were going, oh, fucking hell, what are they doing? And it's because they have one drink in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and they can't clap, and they're all standing up and they're Anyway, but the big highlight moment of actually busking Times Square, when it got to our turn, there was a hurricane. Can you believe that? So we could not do it.
Wow.
Yeah, Mark was so disappointed.
So you didn't work in Times Square in the end?
No.
What was it like being in the city in the hurricane?
That was really exciting. It wasn't a huge one, but it was nice. It was interesting to experience such a thing that you don't get in England.
Not big ones anyway. We have the most tornadoes of any country in the world, believe it or not, but just very little ones.
But little tiny ones.
Little ones.
Baby ones.
So when you're working on the stage, are you taking the similar style of work that you do on the street and just chopping it up and squeezing it onto the stage, or are you developing specific stage works?
I guess no, on the stage it's a bit different. I remember the first time on stage, coming straight from the street, we were too loud, just trying to keep the public. We didn't need to do that because they'd all bought tickets and they were going to stay, hopefully. So we had to sort of calm down a bit. But that what happened was in Hong Kong, we put all our little street acts together and we built it into a theatre show. Using William and Wilma going to the theatre, meeting for the first time at a theatre, lights coming down, and it's us that's doing the show that they're watching. So the first one was I lose my contact lens and have to go to the toilet, and whilst I was changing, William was doing something to entertain the public, and then the lights would go down and we'd do our dance show. Then I'd come back and we'd do a whole William and Wilma scene. And then did William he must have disappeared and changed whilst I did something.
So you were essentially working out transitioning points and taking pieces you'd worked on and then weaving a narrative in between all those pieces. Exactly. And that was in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
That's 85?
That's 85, yeah. And in Hong Kong it was I think, I don't know, 2 or 3 week festival, and we ended up staying 3 months. And we had
Why did you stay longer?
Didn't want to go home. I guess because we were also doing workshop there, and the kids and the adults as well. They were really wonderful, and then we'd get asked to do like a party, because this was when the British still owned Hong Kong. They didn't own it, but it
was a long-term lease. Yeah.
Before China took it back in '87. Or in '87, I think they took it back. Anyway, so we were doing workshops there. We were doing private parties, and then we were also, the most amazing thing was performing in refugee camps on little islands outside the Vietnamese refugees, and that was incredible experience.
Why?
I can remember them pushing tables together and then covering them in blankets, and that was a stage for us, and then a sea of these brown eyes watching, and sort of very emotional.
Why was it so emotional for you? Because these people were in need.
Because I saw how they were living, like in little cardboard boxes, and it was very special to do a show for them. I don't know what they made of it, but just to experience how it was that.
Do you believe you made it? Do you believe you helped in that situation?
Well, I hope so. Yeah. Smiling brown eyes.
Yeah. And especially, if you're in those kind of situations, you're a refugee and someone comes and can smile and take your mind off it for a little bit and give you something that brings you some joy. It's a beautiful thing. So you spend 3 months there. When you come back, are you starting to believe that this double act is really, really working? That it's something there that's solid? Are you thinking this is it?
Yeah. It was still difficult to what happened then, because it might have been 86. So we all went off to Expo 86. Loads of buskers from Covent Garden were invited to that, and that was a great time. So we didn't
where
get
was Expo 86? Is this Australia or Canada?
Canada, Vancouver.
Yes.
Yeah. So many friends there working, and it was a long contract. So although we'd made this theatre show, we didn't get to do it. We were just doing street stuff because it was all the buskers that were entertaining.
And you hadn't moved away from the street at this point? You weren't thinking about doing more theatre? You were still living in both worlds?
Well, living in both worlds, yeah. I know we were trying to get to do... we were trying to get to theatre. And we actually did in the end, because that was also the year we went to Edinburgh Festival, and we were in one of the assembly rooms, and we were doing this show. It was called Did You See That? the beginning of William and Wilma, basically, and it was there that we met a German agent, and in '87 we went off to Germany, and that's where the career started, in Germany.
Why did the career start in Germany?
Oh,
What was it?
well, basically this agent really liked us, and he was booking us into really nice theatres. And of course, back in England, it was before we were trying to get into theatre, and we were doing these terrible little, like, British, what were they called, council tours, where
In like community centres.
yeah, and far reach projects, which never worked. And the only good thing that came about that was we went off to Scotland once, and to the Hebrides and to Skye, and it was all really beautiful. But we'd spend like a whole day trying to transform a barn into a theatre, and then in the evening you'd get like 2 farmers and 3 sheepdog that had come and watch, and it was all a bit disheartening. So
a lot of the time there was low uptake in the stuff you were doing for the community projects.
Yeah, it was just not working, and Thatcher was closing all the little theatres down, and so in Germany it was like, wow, these lovely theatres, and you can do our show, and people will come, and we get.
Was that because you were loved, or was that because Germany had a better theatre culture, or a more accessible theatre culture for more people in the country?
I think that was true as well, and also they didn't have a lot of people like us working at that time. They do now. They have loads.
What do you mean, people like you?
They didn't have many funny people. They didn't have a lot of young theatres. As far as I know, it was our style of comedy was so totally new to them, and so I don't know. We just like hit the right timing in the right place, and our career just stayed in Germany, as it is still there now.
But when you say you hit the right time at the right place, what happened? You went and did the first show, and then they said, right, we want you at this show, this show, this show.
Yeah, we were just suddenly booked. We were booked in many theatres. What happened? We even did the DDR in 1989, which was incredible, before the wall came down. And what happened?
What's the DDR?
The East Berlin, when the wall was up.
But what is the DDR? What's the event?
Oh, they were called the DDR. Maybe Deutsche Democrat Republic. We're not really good at this stuff.
And so you worked for them. They booked you.
We went to the east, and the wall was still there, so it was all very.
What was it like crossing the wall then?
Incredible! It was incredible. We had to go on a train because it was a bit scary and mysterious, and I never experienced anything like this before. And like, we felt we were being watched all the time, and we went with a German guy who was showing us the way and everything. And then we stayed in this huge high hotel, which is still there anyway. And we did a show in I think it's kind of like an old factory of different floors, and it was nice theatre space, and it was the show. Did you see that? And we do Adam and Eve sketch at the end, and we always ask the public if anyone hasn't had an apple, and 9 out of 10, everyone's got an apple in their bag. It's quite amazing. But there, someone threw us a potato, I remember, so it became potato tree. But and then afterwards they had this kind of disco in the next floor, and everyone's dancing, and you wouldn't realize you were sort of on that side, playing, Bob Marley, Stand Up, oh, you're right, stand up, stand up.
And was this for affluent people there? Was there a certain special situation to have people brought over the wall?
I think so. And I think especially a couple of English people. But we had been playing in a theatre on the other side, where just on the frontier, in fact, a theatre called Grits Theatre. And yeah, we were having a wonderful time there.
What was it like there at the time?
In the west side, it was, again, it's just very, very friendly, really nice people. I mean, you just like being at home.
And there was no fear, there was no worry of the fact that at any point this war could come down, war could break out, and the idea that you're on the frontier of two different ideologies, was that not?
Yeah, I mean, it was there all the time, because when we were in the dressing room at the Grips Theatre, we could see the train which crossed the border into. So we always had this strange feeling of the unknown, really, for me. But it's strange because we were there. We were we were there when the war was up, and it's the same year. When we went into the east side for this show, and we were there when the wall came down, and that was very exciting.
What happened from your perspective?
Well, for me, we weren't working that night, and we were in a theatre called the Shine Bar, and it was kind of young performers testing out their materials and things, their shows. And so it was nice atmosphere, people drinking beer and chatting and watching the show. But then suddenly they stopped the show, turned off the music, went completely quiet. No one spoke for like 2 minutes. And then suddenly people were crying. And I said, what's going on? What's going on? And they said, the wall's come down. It's freedom. And that atmosphere was electric.
So there was a lot of partying and celebration that went on after that, I assume.
Yeah, all night, people flocking to the wall and helping people over, and all these little trabans. And they're one style car or one brand of car that they had over there. That's what hit me the most, being there outside. There was no publicity on the streets, posters or anything. So it seemed like you were looking at black and white photos. There was no colour.
Wow.
And all the cars were the same, little trabans.
So it's literally just lots of copies of the same vehicle and blank empty streets.
Yeah.
How fascinating. And so during this whole period, you're working the theatre, you're doing shows, you're putting stuff out. And did you during this time do stuff to do with that surrounding? Did you ever think about going political and doing stuff about being at the frontier of this place, or was that something that never interested you?
No, I'm not into politics, really. I just wanted to make people feel good and laugh. And, we'd mention it because the next day we were staying in Berlin, and we drove our Volvo car. And we joined the line of all the little trabbies, and we were just like rolling along. And our next show was in Kassel, which must have been, I don't know, 5-hour drive. We were just with them, but when we got to the theatre, we were doing our set show because we knew what we were doing then. We might have said something at the end, isn't it fantastic? What's happened and blah blah. But no, we never went political. No.
So when you're writing your stuff, and I assume by this point you've written quite a number of shows coming up to the point we're in the story now. Is that fair?
Yeah.
What was your guys' method of developing the work at that point? Did it become quite slick and mechanical?
Yeah, it was very, very slick. Our timing together, we were like sort of united, like brother and sister. We knew where we were, and if I mean, of course, we did improvise because we had this structure so strongly and we were confident with each other. So when something happened that gave us a magic moment to improvise, then with a public member of the public or something, you go for it and not get lost the other partner.
Yeah, they can drag you back when you need to go back, and
they join in or something. And so people would say to me who don't do theatre or any shows, well, it must be really boring doing the same thing every night. And I said, but it's not, because every public is different, and so the atmosphere is different. And the whole thing about having a public, you've got groups of people coming together, maybe the odd solo person or couples, and they're all coming with their bags of troubles or shit or what's happened to them that day. Some have had bad days, good days, and it's all coming into the same room. And I always think that my job is it's comedy show, so my job, I think, is to try and not to break up these little individual parties and make one big party and get everyone together on the same kind of level, whatever that level is. But to join in, because also everyone's sitting there with different thoughts in their heads before and even during, because what they're seeing, every age group is taking it differently. Everyone's got a different experience of life that they relate to what they're seeing at that moment in time. And also you've got the different perspective of where you're watching the show, if you're at the side or the centre or the back or the front or up in the gods, or it's all different.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things to play with that time. There's so many different variables into doing an interactive show, a show where the fourth wall is broken and you are responding to the clapping and the cheering and everything that goes. When you guys are writing the content, are you doing it at home, just the two of you? Do you sit and write stuff down on paper? Do you figure it out that way? How do you go about creating it now?
Well, Mark's the writer. He's a good writer, and then he'll keep me updated with what he's writing. This is after I'd moved here, but I mean, but then when we come into rehearsal together, that's where I can see where a gag would work, and I put in gags within the lines of the structure of what he's writing about.
And so
my work never actually got written down. There's lots of
so when he's writing, does he write like a loose framework and you guys go in and improv and play and figure stuff out off that framework, or is he quite exact and you kind of tear bits up?
It's quite exact, but then when we come to try and like put it live in visual effects, as well as, because we're talking now as William and Wilma more and more, then sometimes we'd have, changes would have to be made, but basically it's structured, very structured.
Yeah.
And then a lot of rehearsing, and of course once you start rehearsing you realize that has to change, or that goes there, or
So the show's really made to work. It's a loose set of ideas, and rehearsal is where it becomes what it will be when it's on the stage, right?
Yeah. And our kind of work really needs a couple of years, even that long. I mean, we would never go out rough. It would always work. But it's that thing about being so geared in with it and each other, a new show, that it grows with the public. So we really need the public. I really need the public as well, but Mark as well, to let it grow sort of naturally together. It can with the public.
They inform you. They direct you where to go.
So out of rehearsal, when it's good enough to be looked at or watched on stage, it always went to another level with the public.
Is the phrase running it in? You run it in. You run the show in on tour.
Yeah, I guess that, or we polish it. We polish it with the people.
Yeah. So what did life become for you then? When I assumed you'd moved to Germany during this period when all this work was coming. What changed in your life?
I never had an address in Germany. Mark did, when did he moved there? Must have been in 1990, I think. I don't know. A long time. He got married there. He had a German wife. He's got German-speaking sons. That didn't happen straight away. Okay, when we suddenly were endlessly touring in Germany, we were just endlessly on the road and in different hotels and apartments when we had a nice long run of like 2 months in some place.
Were you happy to be on the road?
I loved it. I really loved it. I'm a bit of a gypsy, I think. I had a baby in 91, and so that changed a bit, but we were all on the road together, but separately from Mark. Because the father, Mr. Adams, he came along and looked after the baby, who was what's the word? Garderobe baby, dressing room baby.
Yeah.
And
did it become more difficult to tour because of the costs of having the kid and bringing the kid along, bringing the partner along? Did it make it more difficult?
No, not really. Not really. Not with one. With two, yeah. with one, it was great. No, we managed. But I was really lucky because the father just really, Mr. Adams, he just loved to take that role as looking after him, baby, when I was on stage, and then we were always all together after and before.
Were these happy times then?
Happy times. Did you say?
Yeah. Were these happy times then?
Yeah. We had a van, with a bed in it, and so it wasn't more expensive. And if we wanted to stay in the hotel that the theatres were paying for, sure, yeah. That was great. It was great. And then later on, Mark had a kid, so it made it easier.
And so have you been touring over the last 30 years continuously? Did you guys ever take a break when you had the kids, or was it just grinding through the season, take 3 months off, non-perpetual touring non-stop? What was your year like?
I can remember some years just non-stop. I'm reading these diaries and I'm thinking, wow, non-stop. I don't know, when did we stop? We did a big stop. Must be 95, 96. I can't remember. I think it's something like 96. We had like four years off from each other.
And was that because you had enough? You're like, no, I had enough. Leave me alone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd had enough. I think Mark was really wanting to do a solo show. Oh no, I know. He wanted to start stand up in German. He did. He loves a challenge, that boy. Yeah. So he he wanted to do a stand up blah 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 show. And that's when I made my first solo show. So I never stopped really. But
it's your first solo stage show, right? Because you've worked in the street.
Yeah. I didn't go back to street. I promised myself I wouldn't after 30 for some reason. I just felt that was enough. But I'm so happy I had that training, and I still say it's the best training you can get.
Yeah, was part of the reason why you had enough of it because it's quite a hard life? Was because it was cold, the winters, is that kind of thing?
No, I don't remember being cold. I think we burnt out a little bit because we did do so much. So that this break was more to concentrate on ourselves, and
when
Mark,
you start,
yeah, sorry,
it's okay, it's no problem. You said a Mark, please carry on.
I said a Mark. I said I think, and Mark wanted to. I don't know really. Just do stand up, but maybe more locally than touring the whole of Germany, because it's a big country.
And so you decided to sit and write your own show. Mark's written stuff for how many years have you been working together now? Is it coming up for 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years even at this point?
Yeah, more.
Yeah. And so are you kind of lost, you know, at odds end, a bit lost when you're sitting down to write your own piece? How does it work for you?
Yeah, I was a little bit, but I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and then I asked a friend, Michael McCarran. Have you
Not
interviewed
yet.
him?
No.
The dear old Mike came, and we wrote the show together, my one-woman show. And it was really successful. I loved it. I loved doing the show. You know, it's a macabre show. It's comedy. It's a bit mad.
What were you thinking about when you were writing it? Did you have an idea of what you wanted to get from it before you began?
Yeah, it was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. So I was challenging myself. I had Wilma, and I wanted another character. So Wilma got an electric shock, and she became Stitch. Stitch. She was very nice. she wasn't very nice.
And did she allow you to do stuff that you perhaps thought you couldn't do because of the character before?
Yeah, exactly. She built a man, the perfect man.
So she was a biologist.
Yeah, she was a mad scientist. Okay. Wow.
And did that lead to more playing and to more improv, or to you structuring stuff more?
Improv, yeah. With the public, the more I did it. There was one place in Germany I played it, and the whole little town was called Frankenstore or something, and we had great fun with it because it was the right place to be.
Well, it seems like it's something you can play around with a lot, being an evil, nasty character.
Yeah. So yeah, that was great fun doing that show. I must have done it for about 3 years.
And so you toured it. Did it have its success? Was it critically acclaimed?
Yeah, it was. Dare I say it myself? It was. I mean, I'd get critics like, it's a load of nonsense, but Krissie is the master of her art. So that's a compliment. But it was a mad show. It's totally mad. I loved it. Don't think I can do it now. It was it was so energetic. I just didn't stop for like 45 minutes.
And did you feel like you needed to put that much energy in to prove? Was there a thing of proving yourself? Like, I'm going to go out on my own, and this is going to work, and I'm going to force it to work, even if.
I think I didn't have that then. My challenge was to work and have a kid. I can do it all. I can, of course I can. I'm a woman, you know. But this show was more. No, what I was going to say was, why I needed to be so energetic. I think that's my gift, that I do have so much energy, and I have to disperse it somewhere. And I guess suddenly I was on stage, just me. So I was filling bold, you know, theatre with these two crazy characters, but me.
And how did it change your life touring on your own and not being a double act? How was it different?
Well, I could never, ever imagine myself wanting to do a solo show, because I think public like to see relationships on stage, duos or more people. But there I was doing it and having a good time. But maybe that's why I brought in. He's standing in the corner. He hasn't got a head, but this chap. No, that's Nickelodian. Do you see this chap here?
I see a loitering jacket.
Yeah, he's got long legs, and his head's in Germany at the moment. But anyway, he was my partner in the show. So maybe I was missing Mark. So I had this guy, you know, that I.
You said something interesting a moment ago about you felt like the crowd wants to see a relationship between two people.
Mm.
You think that's something that they want to be involved in?
I think so. Yeah, I don't. Maybe it's me, but I think people like to see different relationships. You know, people like gossip and.
Yeah, very much so. And so you've run this show for 3 years. It's been really successful. What do you aim to do now? What's the next step from there?
Well, this show had a lot of props, and so I had to drive it. I couldn't get on an airplane to Germany with it, and I was touring with I had a technician, so I had a team, and but I wanted a show that I could step on an airplane with. So then I made the Wilma's Jubilee, which it wasn't. It was less of a theatre show and more of all my sketches knitted, woven together with Wilma talking.
And that was just a playful mime show to get rid of all the props.
No, still have some props, but I could get them into 2 bags and fly to Germany from wherever I was, home, France. And I've been doing that for a long time. I also maybe the world. I went into variety as well at some point.
And when you say variety, you mean doing kind of cabaret pieces? So you're doing 10-minute bits?
Yeah, you share the stage with other amazing, like, circus artists. It's very big in Germany, the variety world. They have lots of beautiful theatres, and the artists are all sort of circus people as well, and people with different forms of art.
And how do you find taking your pieces? Because you spent most of I suppose you were doing small sketches before. You weren't doing 1 hour whole pieces. You were putting pieces together when you began, no? So it's not too complicated to cut it out and make something shorter.
I found it incredibly easy because you're sharing a stage for the evening, and maybe I'd go on 2 or 3 times to do different sketches. And you usually got a contract to stay for anything from 3 months to, well, nowadays you can have it for a year. I wouldn't take that now though. So it was nice because you're meeting people and all the time, and still.
Yeah, and did you feel over that time there was, because I'm getting a sense, I talk to different people feel about the work different ways. Some people feel like it's about entertainment, it's about making people happy. It's not necessarily about and there's other people that think it's about the message, it's about the artistry, and they want to change the world by doing what they're doing in a very direct way. Which camp do you think you'd fall into?
A little bit of both. I mean, I like to think I'm not very political though. I know, you get a lot of these stand-up comedians. So I guess I'm trying to change it. It sounds a bit, no. I'm a woman out there doing it, so I'm doing it for the women and saying you can do it if you want to. Come on up. Trying to make a mark like that, and trying to make people for at least maybe just 5 minutes forget all their problems and have a laugh, because you got 80 muscles in your face for laughing, and it improves the immune system.
There you go.
Releasing endorphins in the brain makes you feel like you're going insane. Don't stop, don't stop. That's the way. Exercise laughing muscles every day. Life's too short to moan and grow. My little rap song.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
You were working solo for a long time, right? It was like 5-6 years, something like this, and then you move back into being a double act again. Why not go and have the freedom of performing by yourself and doing what you want when you want and not having to worry about another person? Why go back into the double act?
Why did I do that? Some other people asked me. I think, I don't know, I think we were just really, really good on stage together. And we are really two different, very, very different people. But we went back with a show called Great Lovers in History, which is a really great fun show as well. And I think we got asked to do a long contract in a really nice, well, it was a really nice gig as well. I guess I missed him really. William.
And was it a mutual thing? Was it like the band getting back together?
Yeah, it's like, you know, getting out all those costumes and props. So it's like pulling out an old friend and getting excited about doing that show again, and, you know, meeting new public as well. I mean, there's people that come up to me and they say, my mum brought me to see you when I was 11 years old, and, you know, they're like 30 now or something. Okay, thank you.
Like the horrifying moment when that happened, when someone came up and said, "You remember me? I was a kid volunteer in your show."
Yeah, it happens.
And did it feel different? Did it feel different when you got back together after not working together for all those years?
Yeah, I guess we're both 5 years older and smarter, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. Then we just toured these two shows constantly. One was called Dinner for Two because the Germans watch the show, maybe you know, every Sylvester.
Please tell me.
Okay. It's an English comic from the 30s, I think. Freddie Frankton. And he had a show called Dinner for One. And it's two actors, him and a lady called Miss Sophie. And he has two, and the table's laid out for all these friends of Miss Sophie's, Captain so-and-so, and the butler, Freddie Frinton, has to go around and drink to Sophie's health. And so he gets more and more drunk. And anyway, this little short film is shown every New Year's Eve in Germany and has been for the last God knows how many years. I've always thought, poor old Freddie Frinton never knew about this, and never will, unless he's watching from above. They owe him a fortune.
Yes, a lot of royalties. So you guys thought it's a great piece to make something for German.
We just took the title because all the Germans know Dinner for One, and we put Dinner for Two. So that was how that show started. But later on, it became Christmas.
Did you not take anything more from there? Was it just the name? Just a nice
a couple of little gags that they all related to us Freddie Frinton's, like having a fake leopard skin rug on the floor in one act. It wasn't real.
Just to give a little hint.
Yeah. And later we changed it for Christmas Dinner for Two, and we would just for years and years and years, every November, December, January, we'd be touring the show together. And Great Lovers in History was another fave of the Germans. Yes, we did it for years. and then in the end, we thought, okay, let's make a new show. And this was coming up to the end of us, really. And that was really different. That was William and Wilma having, because the Dinner for Two show was set out like a menu in different acts. So, you know, like the aperitif, it was William and Wilma meeting and salad in a restaurant. Dinner, main course was getting married, and then next having a baby, wedding accompanied the order, and then coffee and the bill. We were playing
a menu of life.
It was the menu of life, yeah, like that. And then, you know, death, basically, the old people, which we had trouble doing when we first did it because we were quite young. And then much easier as we got older, but playing the young William and Wilma in the beginning became hard. But what was I saying?
You were talking about the different shows you developed and touring around.
Oh yeah, then the last one we were doing was really William and Wilma quivering and not getting on at all, as an old marriage couple who'd gone off on a second honeymoon with Wilma trying to reignite the whatever they had, and William complaining about everything. I think that could have been us, really.
I was thinking about that when I heard it. I thought, isn't it wonderful that you've lived through with these characters, and these characters almost have their own trajectory in their lives that you get to drop into.
Well, of course, there was a lot of truth in our characters as William and Wilma, as Krissie and Mark at that time. And but it made the show really work. It just worked, There's nothing better than being honest on stage and selling yourselves. And it was a great show. I'm so sad we have no record of it. We didn't film it.
We were talking about this before the show, weren't we?
Yeah, it's such a shame. Anyway, so it's there, and
it'll be there in a lot of other people's minds as well.
Yeah.
So as the years progressed, did you find, I've talked to a lot of people who are working in the private sector in the entertainments rather than just street and doing variety cabaret. In 2008, it was a bit of a punch in the gut. Did you have the same experience? What
happened in 2008?
There was an economic crisis.
Yeah. I told you, I live in my own little bubble and I'm really happy there. Oh, I can't remember.
The work stayed pretty solid. You didn't have a big drop off of work.
No, I don't think we did. 2008. I'd have to go and look at my schedule card.
You don't need to get the accounts out. It's okay.
2008. Let me think. 2008, 2005, 6, 7, 8. I think I was. I didn't get that far. No, I'm still in the 90s. Stop.
If you want to carry on from where you were, please do. We have 27 minutes left.
Oh, time does fly, doesn't it?
It really does,
on. I think at that time, 2008, I was, let me think, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, I might have been doing some work with Comedy Ladies as well.
What's Comedy Ladies?
Well, Comedy Ladies is a celebrity of Germany, Gerberg Jaka, and she invites ladies to tour with her in really nice theatres, and she did have TV as well, so I worked quite a lot with her. Could have been 2008 as well. Well, I did it for a few years. Haven't done it for a while.
And what was that like? Was it a good experience?
Yeah, because I was the only physical one. Visual, because that's why she liked me, I think, because I wasn't a blah 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 stand-up comedian. She'd have four of us, and we'd make a whole evening show. So,
and what would you write something all together and rehearse a piece, or was it once again like variety?
No, it was much easier than that. She was the MC, talking to the public. Everyone adores her. We'd have huge packed houses, and then she'd introduce us one by one, and she'd tell us what act she wanted to see, because she knew us all so well, and that's how we made the shows.
It seems like from then all the way up to now, you've been working pretty solid consistently, yeah?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I'm really lucky. I'm really, really lucky. I was meant to be working last year as well, but I didn't. I couldn't.
Well, that's the same as everybody, I think, for that.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to it because it would have been my first year in a circus.
Wow.
I had a contract with Circus Roncalli, the German
Wow.
circus,
Yeah.
and so the tour was going to, of course, German-speaking countries, Germany, and then Austria. And it was last year, February. We were rehearsing, and lovely group of people, artists, wonderful, really amazing. Wow, really incredible stuff going on in these places. And live orchestra, and I was going to sing a song. And we rehearsed, and then we did general rehearsal with costumes, makeup, and orchestra, lights, and then flowers, and no public. And then we all had to go home because the pandemic arrived last March. It was.
Yes. Yeah. I think anyone who's watching this contemporary will know that one very well. If you watch it in the future, it was a very boring year. At least for some of us, it's perhaps horrendous for a few. So, how has your lockdown been?
Well, I mean, it was really scary coming back from Germany. The airport was completely empty, and no one really knew what was going on. And I had to have proof that I lived in France because I was coming home to France. And the closing of the borders. So I think I just made it because I was still thinking, should I stay? Should I go? And I arrived. My son had come from Marseille with his girlfriend, and they're still here. But it was completely different atmosphere, probably in England as well, because it was sort of very quiet, no school, total lockdown. And I'm so lucky. I live in a forest, and so I could go on walks, and the weather changed, and the flowers started growing. I really liked lockdown. It just gave me time. It was like a gift, and I had time to do other things that I've never ever had time to do. And
do you regret touring so much in your life and having so little time?
I did at one point, but now, no.
When you say you did at one point, you're saying at one point you were thinking about not touring anymore. You think, give it up. I've had enough. I can't do it. Sod it.
Well, it was guilt because I had another baby in '95, and so 2 babies onto, well, one being 4 was quite different to just having one baby. Anyway, and it was just easier to leave them at home with daddy, and so I'd go off kind of mixed feeling of I'm going to have a good time during the shows, but this guilt of not being at home. But then I would always, they'd always come as they grew older. I got invited to America to do the Zinzani theatre, which is a beautiful Spiegelsaal, mirror tent. It's lovely. And so I'd say, you can book me for 3 months, but it has to be summer so that the family can come. So I've always dragged them along with me whenever possible. But when they were really little,
and for them to get a free holiday.
Yeah. But Cincinnati was great as well. There was one. Well, they made me the queen of Cincinnati. So, and they've got their own wardrobe department, and they built me this costume, which was like on a what's that, metal frame. So two different big frilly collar and this frame which opened up like a French door, and I could step out wearing another costume. And whilst I was in this costume on its metal frame, it was on wheels, and I'd start the show coming out onto this round middle stage.
Like a Dalek.
Yeah, like a Dalek. And this stage would go up, and there'd be sort of planks, not planks, corridors going down. And I had to wheel down out of the door. And I was really nervous at first to control the speed I'd go. And like every night I'd get braver and braver and go a little bit faster before putting my toes down, to slow down. And one night I thought, I'm just going to go for it. And then I went, whoosh, bang, and I was out. I completely knocked myself out, maybe only for a couple of minutes. And I can remember Kevin, who was my manservant for the Queen behind me, saying, "Oh, we can see the Queen's knickers." And I just came to, and of course I was like an insect on my back. I couldn't get up because of this costume. So the artists came and they pulled me up, and I went like this. I was facing the door, which I should have left out through. And I just remember saying, "I'm going out." And I just got patched out. I had a huge black eye like this and a big blue bruise here.
Well, you got your professional points. There's pro points there. You didn't drop character.
Absolutely. And then they said, "You can't go back on." I went, "Just give me a whiskey." And then another one for the evening out. Stories.
Yeah, it's great. And so, what do you see? Do you see yourself in the future doing more performing? Do you see yourself pulling back performing? What do you see for your life now, post-COVID?
Yeah. Well, I am hoping. I mean, the circus say they're not going to tour this year. Maybe 22. They say, "Krissie, will you come in 2022? So I said, "Of course." Yeah. So I'm seeing up to that and just really hoping. I mean, I really want to run away with the circus for a year or two. After that, I don't know. After that, I might just become this crazy little eccentric English woman lost in a French forest and get really good at my harmonica, because I do have a dream about playing with a band when I'm about 70.
Just be a little crinkly lady with a harmonica.
Yeah. There you go. But, the other thing, I would never do a solo show. I think that's boring and I'd get lonely now. I'd love to be in a group. I'd love to be in a theatrical group, but I wouldn't even mind doing that on the street again. We've got to keep the street alive. Yes, so anyone who needs this little, not so old lady, give us a ring.
There you go. Keep calling, everybody. So you're thinking about maybe going back on the street? You're thinking about tearing up the decision you made when you were 30, where you thought, "That's enough of that"?
Well, I would do it if it needs to come to that, to prove that the streets need the street performers to keep the world happy. This is crazy, this thing that's gone through Parliament. It's not right.
I agree. Well,
to do it with a team, with a group.
You worked solo for a while and you said you enjoyed it. Why are you so talking about your later performance life? Why are you so emphatic about being with a group of people?
I guess going around in circles. Or I don't know, bouncing ideas off each other a bit more than sitting and rehearsing alone. Something new. Yeah.
So you feel like you get energy off other people, you get to change, they get different inputs, it keeps you fresh.
Yeah. Now I'd be much more into that than doing a solo. Definitely.
And I suppose the other questions to ask, and these are the same questions asked towards the end of every interview for people, is for beginning street performers, what do you have to say to them?
Just do it. No, the first one's going to be the hardest, but you'll feel so pleased with yourself once you've done one. And then the second one, you're going to feel the same, really nervous, and you're going to have to push yourself again. But just keep going, because it's a training. It's a training, and you don't get anything right the first time. But once you've made that first step, you've done it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it.
There you go. I think that's reoccurring and great advice there.
Thank you. Can I? Yeah, sorry.
No, you carry on.
I want to read a poem to you all before I go, but say what you...
So there's one last thing I'll say before you read the poem then. There's a lot of people who watch this by the time it's all gone through social media in the following few weeks, who you will have seen on your journey, who will be your friends, who you've met, who you've known, who you've helped, who's helped you. What do you have to say to everybody?
I love you. Thank you. Just keep doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so last things to say, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for giving your time to the archive. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, share, subscribe, click the bell. If you are capable and inclined, please go and look at our Patreon, support the project. Krissie, you said you have a poem.
Yeah, I will be looking at a lot more interviews. It's good work, Matt, and thank you so much as well. This poem is written by Spike Milligan, who, of course, I listened to because my father listened to the Goons when I was really little. Anyway, it's just very now. It's called Smiling is Infectious. Smiling is infectious. You catch it like the flu. When someone smiled at me today, I started smiling too. I passed around the corner and someone saw my grin. When he smiled, I realized I'd passed it on to him. I thought about that smile, then I realized its worth. A single smile, just like mine, could travel round the earth. So if you feel a smile begin, don't leave it undetected. Let's start an epidemic quick and get the world infected.
Oh, what a wonderful ending. Krissie, thank you for your time. Everybody, thank you who's been watching. Have a good one, everybody. Goodbye.